All right, we're here live on video with Dr. Tim Engelmann, who has been a licensed and practicing therapist in this area for many, many years. I've already told everyone who is watching the sermon about his extensive background as a fellow at Harvard and many other incredible things. But Tim, let's begin. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Graham, considering everything. How about yourself?
It's same for me. I'm feeling like I go from happy to kind of depressed a little bit.
Yeah.
But so have you ever seen anything like this? You have been a therapist through 9/11. I'm assuming you've seen other times, but what would you compare the moment we're in right now to?
That's a good question. I was trained back at the Mass General right at the beginning of the AIDS epidemic.
Mm.
And there was a lot of fear, a lot of stuff going on then about AIDS.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of look back on that time. And then, of course, 9/11, as you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
But it's nothing that I can, in my professional and personal life, can compare to what's going on now with this pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing at all.
Mm-hmm. And I know you have to go at the end of our interview to a very, very hard therapy session. You've been doing so many. So without talking about any private details of your clients, and I know you have a very full caseload, what are some trends you're seeing? What are some therapeutic, DSM-5? What are you seeing? Obsessive disorders? Are you seeing anxiety? Are you seeing everything all rolled into one?
Well, that's a good question. I've seen a variety of different people's reactions. But one of the things that I do notice, which I kind of want to hold central to this, is that in the midst of all this crisis and all this pain, I see a lot of resilience and people adapting well. Now, of course, it goes without saying that there are other, obviously, people that have a lot of stressors.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something very cool about when I walk down Burlingame here and I see neighbors in my own neighborhood, people saying hello to each other.
Mm.
So I'm looking at that fact that this hit us by surprise.
Mm-hmm.
So too, I would urge the listener here, the viewer, to look at the surprises, the good surprises that could come out of this.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think there's something central to being, our human spirit. There's something central to our faith in Christ that will bring out the best, the resilient nature of ourselves.
Mm-hmm. It's so
I
good.
kind of underscore that kind of strength that I see coming.
Mm-hmm. I've only had one therapy session with you. It was so helpful for me, but I remember you helped me to find kind of an inner resilience in myself by the end of that conversation. I would think that's what your goal is with each of your clients right now.
Yeah, I try to find that, and sometimes it's a little more evident than others. And a lot of times it just comes right out of the natural process of doing this kind of work.
Mm-hmm.
So that's cool. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So most people that I am seeing or I am talking to pastorally are dealing with basic depression, mild depression, mood swings throughout the day. One moment they're up, the next moment they're down.
Yep.
What I think might be helpful for some people watching is how could we determine what would be a normal reaction to this, and what might be considered like more clinical, where people would need to come see somebody like you?
That's a very, very important points there, because there's going to be a normal swell, as you said earlier, times of anxiety, times when things kind of feel okay. So there's this rhythmicity, things come in waves. And what is important also for people to recognize, it's going to bring up a variety of different feelings.
Mm.
And a lot of us tend to try to suppress those feelings.
Mm.
And what I want to urge people to do is to be able to identify them, express them, obviously in appropriate ways. Because once they kind of get out in the open, there's less likelihood for people to develop mental health concerns. So for instance, someone can cry, someone can express their fears, someone can embrace them with that. It's like, wow, that's validating. So when you validate the negative feelings, it also opens up a fuller spectrum for you to now enjoy the more positive ones. So even though the negative ones are hard to embrace or express. No one wants to sit with negative feelings. It's uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
But by doing so, we grow in strength.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to kind of urge people to say, like, it's okay to
Mm-hmm.
feel sad. It's okay to be scared. We're all scared in this time.
Mm-hmm.
And I say we're all, which is something very unique to us, is that we are all sharing the same kind of experience. There's a mutual sense of we're in it togetherness. And I think that's actually would be a way to kind of reduce the likelihood of it, because it's not just a personal, I'm isolated by myself, I can't do it. We're all in it together
Mm-hmm.
for the strength in the community.
Mm-hmm. So just by validating people's feelings or helping them to validate their own feelings, that is the beginning of a process of healing or a process of healthfulness.
Yes, a process of healing and prevention.
Mm-hmm.
Because
So,
I like to see it get to the point before it gets to where people are calling my office.
mm-hmm. So we can do that with one another if we're in kind of low levels of anxiety, low levels of fear, low levels of anger. We can express to our spouse or whoever, our friend, and say, I am feeling nervous today. I don't exactly know why, but I'm feeling scared.
Mm-hmm.
And just by saying that, there's the beginning of a healing process.
Exactly, because you're identifying the feeling within yourself. I'm feeling scared. And then you say, well, I don't know why. Well, let's take a look at why. Oh, of course, I just checked the news.
Mm-hmm.
Good,
Anyone
pleasant.
would feel scared.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's going to feel scared. And then when you share it with one another, you get closer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're not alone. And it's
Mm-hmm.
hard because we're sheltering in place.
Right.
And for those people who don't have access to Zoom and video, it makes it even worse.
Right.
To encourage phone contact if you can't get on Zoom,
Mm-hmm.
interaction in whatever ways you can, breaks the isolation, the loneliness, and then eventually that despair and the stuff that could lead up into mental health problems.
That's good.
So, yeah.
So on the subject of sheltering in place, I have 5 people in my household. And what I've noticed is in that enclosed space, people are all going through at least 5 different emotional processes a day.
Yes.
And if one person, and I'll talk about this in my message, in the house is feeling really, really anxious, what ends up happening is everyone in the house is anxious.
That's the panic.
If one person is feeling kind of angry, everyone's angry. The funny example of this is when the 3 kids are doing a rave in the living room in a dance room, you know, we're all doing the rave. That we can't be alone in that. Are there some things you might say about sheltering in place with the system of people, a family or friends or whatever it looks like in our lives?
Yeah, those are very good concerns, and they're not easily or simply kind of put together a kind of a formula. But there's certain kind of things one can think about. It's hard. We're all together.
Mm-hmm.
Our kids now are at home.
Mm-hmm.
We got to figure out how to do homeschooling at the same time, do my office work at home.
Mm-hmm.
My spouse is the same situation. How are we going to kind of figure this thing out?
Right.
All of our routines have changed.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things to do is find some routines that you all can agree on.
Mm-hmm.
So someone is on tonight for dinner. Between 9 and 11, we do schoolwork. So there's some kind of order and some sort of sense of control over the uncontrollables.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that will help kind of reduce the temperature in the homes.
Mm-hmm. This is your space. This is my space. This is my time. This is your time.
Yes.
This is my time to feel intense. This is your time to feel intense.
Yes. Yes. So we kind of piggyback off of each other. It's hard when I do couples work or family work when everyone is in the same place, because a lot of times people will emerge and one person will be strong for a little period of time while the other person is kind of like, I'm having struggles.
Mm-hmm.
And then it flips around. It's like, oh, now it's my turn.
Uh-huh.
So kind of learn that little inner rhythm with each other.
Right. That's so good. One main last question for this interview, and then for those who are watching this sermon, the rest of the interview, many of the questions you've sent into the church, we're going to actually ask Dr. Tim Engelmann in just a moment, so you can catch that a little bit later online. Also, if you're a parent and struggling with parenting in place, Dr. Tim Engelmann is going to do a chat, literally a live Zoom chat just like this with parents this Wednesday at 6 o'clock. And that will be with Tara Rumler. And that's literally going to be like a group therapy session. So I can't wait to hear how that goes. So,
that sounds good. I'm looking forward to that. And also just kind of backing up to when those things really get out of control. If you are in doubt, make the call.
okay.
An ounce of prevention, an ounce of goes a long way because it's a pound of cure. Call someone, even if it's better to err on the side of safety.
Right.
Reaching out, you're doing something about it. Even if it's just a consult. Hey, doc, I got this concern. Okay, fair enough. Maybe you want to make a couple of appointments. Okay, when the pandemic settles, we hope that it will someday settle.
Right.
Maybe you won't need it as much.
Right.
And obviously some of the risk signs here is when someone is really struggling and just can't pull themselves out. Okay, and that's when you want to kind of call. When people are feeling suicidal, for instance, want to put that out there. That's the time, obviously, to call. Right. And one last piece, grief. It's a complicated thing when you can't be with your loved one when they pass. If you have a loved one who passes from COVID-19, they're alone.
Right.
And then what are we going to do? We're going to have a memorial service. We're going to have the flowers. We're going to have the music. But what do you mean? We can't have gatherings of over just a couple.
Right.
So that complicates the grief. So again, that normalizes it because we're all doing the same thing, but also makes it harder. So it's time to be able to reach out to a professional.
In my session with you, you told me this thing I'll never forget, and it's what influenced my sermon last week. You said, Graham, after hearing what I was sharing with you, my problem, you said, so tell me the rest of the story. How does the story end?
That's right.
How will this narrative find completion? And that helped me so much in both giving me a sense of control over the narrative, but also in thinking positively about how something that is hard now might end beautifully in the future.
Right.
But that's such a good idea. Did you tell me that a famous rabbi taught you that?
It probably was based on a famous rabbi. It was, I think it was a psychologist who was one of the founders of cognitive therapy. It's how we think about the problem, how we tell the story, the narrative influences how we are. So I remember him in a continuing ed talking about what's the rest of the story? What do you want to write? How do you want this to end? What do you want to tell your kids, your grandkids about this?
Right.
Whoa,
so good.
Lights on. And I would urge the viewer, the listener, to think about 3 ways you would like to see some things positive come out of this. 1, for the country, 2, for our families, and 3, for ourselves.
So good.
So
good.
The rest of the story still needs to be written.
You're great. Thank you, Tim. And we're going to go back to the message on Sunday here today. And if you want to catch the rest of the interview that I'm going to do with Tim right now, some of your specific questions, catch that online this week. Thanks again, Tim.
Sounds good. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay. Now you want to do the other questions?
Sure.
Okay. Here's a question, Tim, from a member of the congregation who says, after I go grocery shopping, I feel anxious at home and I really don't know how to figure that out. What's that about, or what would you say to that person?
Well, that's a very good question. Appreciate that. The very fact that someone's asking that question says a lot because they want to get some help. So let's kind of look at that. Anxious about going to the grocery store? I remember last night going down to my local grocery store and I was stopped on the way in because I can't bring my own bags. I was like, oh, okay. And then I'm looking around, everybody's got these masks on.
Right.
And then I look in the mirror and I got this funny looking, funky little mask that doesn't quite fit my face.
Right.
And then I go in there and it's like, oh, please make sure you abide by the 6-foot rule. I got that.
Right.
And now we have to do this like one-way aisle thing.
Yeah.
So I go down the aisle, I'm looking for butter.
Right.
And I'm like, wait, the whole refrigerated thing from the one end of the aisle to the other end of the aisle,
Right.
empty.
Right.
And I'm living in the Bay Area of the United States of America.
Yeah. Right.
So I come home and I'm like, I talk to Kim, my wife, and I'm like, Jesus, it's unsettling.
So what I hear you saying is anybody who isn't anxious going to the store today might have some issues. It is a normal thing to feel anxious when things are so out of order.
See, and that anxiety can be very helpful because it makes us do things that keeps the spread from continuing on.
Mm-hmm.
It's like anxiety in a way is it like alerts us to something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So let's do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, when we were in a village and a lion entered,
Right.
we got to do something about it. Well, we got an invisible lion. So
Right.
now we can do things. And for the person who's asking this question, you are doing something because you're practicing social distance. You're taking those measures.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then in turn, give yourself a chance to breathe.
That's good.
Wash the food.
Right.
Put it in some way to organize it.
Yeah.
And move on with your day.
It's good.
But definitely acknowledge it, because if you don't acknowledge it, then things will start building.
Right. Right. So good. Here's another question. A person asked this: I seem more sensitive lately. I cry more at dumb things. Is that normal?
Yes. That is very, very, very normal.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't be human if you didn't feel that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because we all have a certain threshold where we kind of reach. People vary. Some people lower, some people higher.
Mm-hmm.
But the closer you are to your threshold, the more you feel unsettled.
Mm-hmm.
It's sad to read the news. It's sad to hear about the deaths that are all around us. It's hard even to say it here.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh.
Right.
So yes, it's normal to be, because you're closer to your threshold and a little bit over the threshold.
Mm-hmm. Is crying a release valve in our hearts and souls, or is it like a temperature gauge?
Actually, could be both.
Mm-hmm.
I see it as a release valve because, again, we don't want to suppress those feelings.
Mm-hmm.
We want to be able to express them, because if they get suppressed, then they'll build up and get expressed in unhealthy ways.
Mm-hmm.
And it's then a temperature gauge. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, I'm crying. And you say, well, why am I crying?
Mm-hmm.
Because of,
Right.
look around.
Yeah, it's good. Okay, here's another person. I am on Zoom or the phone all the time. Sounds familiar. This person is working from home. I don't know how to make time for myself. Everyone else seems to be doing more socializing.
Well, you're not alone you're on the phone a lot, because people have to work and they work at home, and it's a lot harder to figure out these Zoom things and conference calls. So there's a lot of stress.
Right.
So I would urge the person to find some space to relax, some time to have a Zoom meeting just with some friends.
Right.
Can't go very far, but you can walk around the block.
Right.
I have a golden retriever. She loves to go take a walk, do those things, breathe the fresh air. And when you look around, you notice there's no air pollution.
Mm-hmm.
The skies are bluer than I don't think I've only been in the Bay Area for 20, 30 years, but some people who held back to way before that may remember it before. And I look out my window in my office at home, and I look down, I could used to see plane after plane landing. I'm like, it feels weird. Or like, whoa, wait a minute, there's no planes in the sky. And that creates the anxiety. But at the same token, the blue sky. So go out and enjoy and look at the blueness of the sky around you.
Right.
To get a break.
It's good. It's good. Here's another person. I have lined up so many projects, maybe too many. Am I avoiding facing this? I think I understand that question.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the projects in this person's life are an avoidance dynamic of not dealing with what they're feeling.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's good to stay busy. Because it's good to occupy ourselves, because otherwise then we can get just lost in our own preoccupations. But when busyness busy work just becomes busy for the sake of busyness, then it tells me that they're avoiding looking at the pain.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, a supervisor back when I was in Boston at the Mass General interviewed someone and said, busy, busy, busy. What are you running from?
Right.
And it's like busy, busy, busy. And I think I emailed you a book that I've been reading of a local colleague, Stephanie Brown. She does a lot of work on addictions work.
Mm.
And she wrote a book a couple of years ago called Addicted to Speed.
Wow.
But speed here is not referring to the speed, the drug,
Right.
but speed, the pace of our culture.
Mm-hmm.
Busy, busy, busy. Always on to the next task, always on to the next task.
Right.
The pandemic has forced us to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to create some anxiety because now we have to figure out new routines
Right.
and also be aware of oneself.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't necessarily want to go there, but by
Right.
going there, it'll actually help you grow as a person.
Mm-hmm.
So keep the routines, establish them new, but also take time to feel the feelings, even if they're painful.
Mm-hmm. I was just thinking they call it Zoom. That's sort of like a fast, speedy word. Maybe they should change the name to like slow or something, you know,
I like
chill.
that.
I want to do chill, a chill room.
Go. That's it. I like that.
All right. Here's just a couple more. My constant worry is my grown kids and how this is affecting their income and future. How do I let that go? Yes, I trust in God, but it's still something I'm stuck on.
Well, that hits home for all of us. I mean, the part of this pandemic is not just the physical health concerns, it's our financial health.
Mm-hmm.
I think with that would be one day at a time, what we have now.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly plan whatever we can for the future. I think things will rebound over time,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully sooner than later.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't want to look at the stock market every minute of the day, but
Right.
seeing positive trends can help feel like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be tough, but we're going to muscle through that.
Right. Your own son, Jonathan, is speaking with our youth this week. I love Jonathan. He's a professional baseball player, and there's no baseball now. This must be hitting home personally for you and for Kim.
Well, there's a reason I think probably,
That's funny.
shout out for Cleveland Indians.
Love it.
Yeah, it's personal, and I think it's also part of our own culture. And where do we go for entertainment? Where do we go for the release? I was talking to
Right.
Kim last night about this. We can't just go sit there and watch a baseball game, a football game. I'm like, oh yeah, go, go, go. It's like silence.
Right.
So,
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Just two more questions. One is a person asks, how much news should I watch?
yes. Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Enough to stay informed.
Yeah.
Maybe in the morning, maybe in the evening,
Right.
or maybe twice. I got these little apps on my phone. I kind of get the headlines and I'm good.
Yeah.
The reason why I don't want people to go over and over, because it's the same cycle.
Right.
It's the same bad news.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I look at the news, I want to look also encouraging news. Instead of looking at the news, I like the news sources. I go right to the San Mateo County Health Department. Has a wonderful website. Just Google San Mateo County Mental Health COVID-19 cases. And they tell you how many new cases are per day. They're maybe a day or two behind the reporting.
Right.
I'm looking at the trends, and the numbers have gone, whoa.
Right.
Whoa. 5, 7 new cases, 8 new cases, 12 new cases out of a population of 800,000.
Right. Right.
Now, that doesn't mean we should put down our guard. And there's a lot of cases that go unreported and all that good stuff. But to reduce the amount of exposure to the media. After all, they're trying to sell a product, and they sell it based on our fears. And to me, that feels a little rugged and manipulative. I don't like that. So stay informed, but don't go over and over and over with it.
Right. Totally. One last question. The household is getting on each other's nerves. How can we get along better?
That's good news to think about, because you can get along the way you were getting along before. So there was the time. Try to think back to those days when things were kind of
Right.
humming along.
Yeah.
Again, take the temperature of the room.
Mm-hmm.
I got a thermostat in my office. When it gets too warm, the air conditioning kicks in. Too cold, it warms up.
Mm-hmm.
Take the temperature of the household,
That's good.
meaning the emotional temperature.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I put the thermometer at 1 to 10, 10 being
Right.
like way over the top.
Right.
When it starts to get around 7, it's getting warm in the room.
Right.
So let's do something so
Right.
it doesn't get to a 10. Meaning
Right.
a 10 when, when people are fighting and yelling and screaming at each other.
Right.
We're not getting
Yeah.
along.
Yeah.
So do things to de-escalate. When you get to about a 5 or a 6 with the room temperature,
Yeah.
go for a walk, go
Yeah.
read, do something pleasurable. Find those things that you like to do. Well,
Right.
my kid doesn't like me to do anything because he used to out play basketball all the time. Well, do that now. But it doesn't mean you can't find other creative ways to connect.
Right.
So yeah.
Totally good. Tim, you are amazing. You are a huge resource, not to mention a personal friend, and you have helped me personally through some stuff. And also you have helped many, many people. We thank God for you and for Kim and for Jonathan and for Julie and the whole family. So I hope in a very hard profession that you're in, you know how much you are valued. I think our screens just froze, and that's probably a good time for the end of the interview.